Madam Speaker, today, right now in America, around the dining room tables at home, there's two topics of discussion that I have to think are most pressing during that dinner conversation, and that is unemployment and price at the pumps. And frankly, they're both related very closely. Madam Speaker, before being appointed to office, President Obama's Energy Secretary Stephen Chu stated, "Somehow we have to figure out how to boost the price of gasoline to the levels in Europe." Well, Madam Speaker, at the time of that statement, gasoline prices in Europe were $8 to $10 a gallon. Now, last week, the Energy Secretary made headlines when he seemed to say the administration's goal was not to lower gas prices. Now, considering the goal is not to lower gas prices, this may be the first time that the administration's energy policies matches its rhetoric. Now, despite the President's rhetoric about the need for increased domestic production of fossil fuels, to date this administration has seemingly done everything it can to block production. But the purpose of these remarks is to highlight not the administration's statements, but instead their policies. Let's look at the record, starting with some positive things that happened just before the President took office and continuing through 2012 to present day, as shown on this graph. First of all, in July of 2008, at the peak of the 2008 gas price spike, President George Bush removed 18 years of presidential executive orders restricting offshore oil and gas energy development. Prices began to fall immediately, almost overnight, given the fact that not one additional barrel of oil was drilled, but it was a message to the market, a strong message to the market that America finally recognized that the American taxpayers owned assets in oil and was willing to use them. What a message to the market would be today, a similar message. But back in 2008, that's where we saw this drop begin to start. Now, in September 2008, just a couple months later, Congress finally followed after its 26-year ban on offshore drilling to allow that to expire. And prices at the pump, as you can see, Madam Speaker, dropped dramatically even more. Then President Obama took office. February 2009, soon after, not long after inauguration, the administration rescinded oil shale lease plans put in place during the Bush administration to aid the production of oil on U.S. government lands. These are lands that are owned by federal taxpayers. President Obama's actions reduced production of oil in the United States government lands. And we see what continues to happen with prices. In June of 2010, the House Democrats passed a cap-and-trade national energy tax, which would have dramatically increased gasoline prices. In November 2009, the administration unilaterally shortened lease terms on some Outer Continental Shelf leases. Well, this policy not only discouraged oil and natural gas production, but also decreased much-needed government revenues. In March of 2010, the administration canceled the remaining lease sales and seas off the Alaska coast, eliminating development of reserves that the government estimates could be as large as 65 billion barrels of oil. In May of 2010, the administration canceled the Virginia offshore lease sale, which had bipartisan support from the Virginia governor and the Virginia congressional delegation. The administration also canceled the remaining 2010 Gulf of Mexico lease sales. In December 2010, the administration extended the moratorium on leasing off the Atlantic and Eastern Gulf of Mexico through 2017. In January 2012, President Obama rejected the Keystone XL pipeline. Estimates show that the Keystone XL pipeline would add 1.1 million barrels a day of friendly Canadian oil to our Gulf of Mexico refineries. Now, Madam Speaker, moving forward with a credible energy policy can only be achieved if we all have a shared understanding of the facts. Global demand for oil is increasingly driven by developing economies such as China and India. In the U.S., our demand is down 6% year after year, and prices are still skyrocketing, and it's going to stay that way. 85% of the world's energy consumption comes from hydrocarbons, oil, coal, and natural gas. While renewable energy is needed and new consumption efficiency should be encouraged to meet future energy demands, hydrocarbons will be the dominant source of fuel for the world's economy for many decades to come. No one can deny that before we can create an energy supply that is just substantially more diversified, we're going to need more fossil fuels to get us there. Well, unfortunately, this administration is preventing the U.S. from developing additional energy supplies to meet our demand, and as a result, families are struggling with rising energy costs and higher gas prices at the pump. Thank you, Madam.
The gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cohen, for 5 minutes.